It was a lot of pressure. Imagine the conversations. We're going to listen to the weatherman, the nerdy guy who's here to tell us that there's a bad weather report coming in, and we're going to take him seriously.
I thought you really captured the weight of Eisenhower, the impact of Operation Tiger, and what hit you most about portraying this man who is like on the edge of enormous historical consequences?
Well, I absolutely did the research I needed to gain an appreciation for who he was, and I did grow to admire him. Granted, he was a product of his time. He was someone who graduated top of his class from West Point, wanted to participate in First World War, but it had ended by the time that he was out of the academy. He did have disappointment, it's well documented for that reason, but he was a career soldier for the next 40 or so years. He kept getting promoted and promoted and promoted until we find him on the weekend that we do. And it's interesting to note that during the span of his entire career, he never fired a shot in anger or was fired at in anger once. Montgomery did not have the same record. Montgomery was in the thick of everything, and he was quick to let Eisenhower know that. So there was collision of ideologies, egos. It was a lot of pressure. Imagine the conversations that weekend. And Eisenhower having the temerity as the upstart Johnny-come-lately American to say, hang on, we're going to listen to the weatherman, the nerdy guy who's here to tell us that there's a bad weather report coming in, and we're going to take him seriously because that would mean calamity for the troops standing by, all 300,000 of them, all their gear. And to attack under those circumstances would have been a disaster. Imagine the conversations that it went into. Well, that's what this film is for. And Eisenhower, from my understanding of what I learned about him and how I said I grew to admire him as a leader, he cared intensely for the troops. He saw his own sons in them. I can only personally imagine the conflict of looking these 18, 19, 20-year-old guys in the eyes before they deploy, knowing the grim statistics of their survival. And he was a person who had an excellent ability to listen and not just hear people. He saw them as humans. And that's a lot for me as an actor to work from.
Well, it's a hugely cinematic experience, Pressure. Obviously, there's a pressure cooker of where they're talking about the D-Day landings in the war rooms, and then it sort of expands way out to what the actual soldiers went through. Yeah, it's very, very fast-paced and psychologically interesting because you see the stakes are so enormously high, and you see these experts at work and trying to speculate as to what the best thing that might be in order for the future of mankind. The stakes were really that high, and so yeah, it seemed to me to be actually very witty as a script. I think when you think, oh, it's a war movie that is related to the weather, you might think, how's that going to work? But actually, I think you have to have a degree of humour and wit amongst the characters alongside the very serious subject matter.
Our audiences may know you as Friday from the Marvel Universe. How did you approach being that emotional Friday for Eisenhower throughout this movie?
Well, she's a real person. It actually is based on a real person and a real Irish lady who was his driver for 3 years and then became his executive aide. And so there was a lot of stuff written in books that I was able to look at, and pictures and things. And then, just sort of the public and the private Eisenhower, he was two different men. He was very different behind closed doors. He was obviously just a man struggling with a very hard decision. But in public, he was a big general. He was respected and in charge. So she sort of changes depending on which version of him she's getting. I found all that really interesting.
If you could just tell me what it was like working with Andrew Scott, crafting those scenes of tension between Ike and Stagg.
Andrew, we all know he's an incredible actor, first of all. He's intelligent, he's easy on the eyes, he's engaging to watch. And for Andrew, I know how important it was for him to lean into the aspects of who was James Stagg, this obscure character, and why was it so important that he get the data and the science and the facts correct? Because at that time, we're living in a world where weather prediction was looking out the window, and analog records. And for Andrew to craft a performance around what is, seemingly nerdy information that we presently in our day take for granted because we have this thing in our hand that tells us, wear a raincoat. Imagine everything that everyone had to consider on that fateful weekend, and bring that to the work that we did on set. It was a collision. It was like working with him was like watching him stand like a boulder in the stream of dissent and invective that comes his way. But Andrew has an incredible ability to stand his ground. It's almost like he is spiritually aerodynamic or something. Like it just folds around him. It's quite incredible to behold. Like no matter how much I shouted and screamed in his face and, badgered him and all of that, it just went right around him. And maybe, I'd see his hair ruffle a little bit, but that was it. I promise you.
Brendan is, his job was to encapsulate this incredible, iconic American hero, and what he brings to the role is so extraordinary because he brings a sort of likableness and a lightness to that character that I think is very important. But then also he's very, very intimidating, and he was scary. He was scary. James Stagg, who I play, he's got his own spark of divine fire as well. So it's these guys who have got very different physicalities and very different cultures, who come together to do the best thing for the world.
Working with Andrew Scott, what was it like sharing those scenes with him and kind of crafting those emotional moments between the two of those characters together?
Well, usually it was like a night shoot that was freezing, so we were both in agreement that let's get this right quick so we can all go home. So that was basically what I can remember, but. At the same time, listen, yes, she was very nurturing and very kind to him. They had a job to do, and he had a job to do. And I feel like Kay was very good at walking that fine line of being kind, but yet buck up. I mean, we have got to make a decision here. So it was sort of being strong but kind. It's kind of a tricky one to play, but it's an important, note to play in that time and with soldiers.